How's it going? I've heard a lot about reparations, but I've yet to hear of anyone laying out any kind of plan. So I thought, well, I'd come up with a plan. And me being me, I'm going to insert myself in every discussion whether I know the facts or not. I'm going to leave the debate to the smart folks as to the justification for reparations and assume that you may be willing to listen or have a conversation about it and skip ahead to what a plan could look like and therefore help us decide if reparations are justified. Now, there are lots of intelligent people that can add up the net worth lost or made by people of color and their descendants, and the total possible costs of reparations and the math that can assign a cascading worth of losses to the proration in today's dollars of the 40 acres and a mule General Sherman wanted to give every freed slave, but was decided not to give them. So I want to keep you attention deficit listeners engaged by first giving you my 10 points for the straw man I propose as a way ahead for the implementation of reparations, and then from there, all you smart people can tear it up and come up with your own better plan. But of course, you and I know the devil is in the details, so I can't hope to address every single detail here. But point number one is, when I am talking reparations, I am including any race in this country that was segregated or banned from public schools. That includes, but may not be limited to, descendants of slaves, American Indians, Latinos in this country legally, and World War II imprisoned Asians and their descendants. Point number two, my premise is very important, is that racism is institutionalized in this country, and therefore it will take an institutionalized solution. Point number three, my plan, once put in motion, will be in effect for 30 years from the date started. This is long enough to overlap approximately 2 generations and get us on the right track. Point number four, I expect it to take anywhere from 1 to 3 years for Congress to draft a plan that is explicit and actionable. Meanwhile, a funding stream will be initiated and money will begin to be set aside. Point number five, the centerpiece of reparations will not be in the form of checks or money to individuals. The centerpiece will be grants and monetary forgiveness that will give people of color a pathway to financial independence. Number six, if you fall in the category of qualifying for a program, then college at any state, institution, or trade school is free and will be underwritten by the government. Point number seven, any first-time home buyers or existing first-time home buyers will not have to pay mortgage interest. Interest will be backed by the government. Number eight, if you attain an agricultural degree or similar type degree, then you will not have to pay interest on the purchase of your first working ranch or farm. Point number nine, the U.S. government will formally recognize and apologize for past misdeeds. And number 10, certain people of color will not be eligible for any of these reparations based on their current income. That income amount will be decided at a later date by a committee much smarter than myself. You know, too bad. Congratulations, you made it. You know, I don't think President Obama needs reparations, and neither do his children. Now, there are some second-tier in the weeds sort of programs that I think are worth mentioning. And there are 4 items that I think certainly deserve honorable mention in my reparations plan. The first of those 4 is there will be other forms of payments to incentivize people of color to join such organizations as police departments, fire departments, and etc. by offering cash signing bonuses and signing bonuses for needed vocations, as decided by Congress. Point number 2, or subpoint number 2, if you're currently living in low-income housing or on the reservation and uneducated, you'll be given an opportunity for free GED courses and then free college, and then an opportunity to purchase your first interest-free home. However, those things do not have to happen in that order. The next one is school loans will be relooked and you'll be offered government jobs that will pay off your student loans for working in underserved areas while getting a good paycheck. And then my last subpoint is for all the white people who said, well, I grew up poor too, and my parents were poor. And what we will have to do is we will have to come up with a program that looks at your particular situation, that can decide that, yes, you have been generationally poor, and that for whatever reason, you were not given the same opportunities as mainstream America. But if your parents were middle-income Americans, you know, your dad was a nurse, your mother was a doctor, your mother was a plumber, you guys lived in a nice house, they made good income, you went to decent schools, but then you turned into a crackhead, well, I'm sorry. That's not institutional racism. That's not institutional marginalization. And so you're not going to be eligible for anything. And people are going to ask, well, how are we going to fund this? Well, first of all, I don't think it's going to be as much as the $14 trillion that Robert Johnson, the former owner and CEO of BET, and his link is right here, I don't think it'll be that much that he suggested. I think it will be closer to the $2.5 trillion that was discussed on the PBS piece about reparations. And you can also Google that, and the link is right here. Just Google PBS reparations and that link. This program is going to be funded by taxing those organizations and areas that have already historically taken advantages of these groups of people of color and the poor. 1, alcohol and tobacco will have a small special taxes put on them. Secondly, pharmaceutical companies will pay a small tax. Third, big business will pay a small special tax. And there will be a small luxury tax on big-end items like cars, boats, and planes. We're also going to look at diverting some military spending. Did you know that the DoD has spent $300 million on erectile dysfunction drugs since 2011? And it spends $9 billion annually just so soldiers can travel. So certainly the DoD can cut its spending on travel, which we all know also leads to the use of Viagra. There's literally a million ways to fund this program, and while we're at it, let's throw in a national health care program, and we'll save even more money on the front end. But that's another video that I'm not going to make. So let me just tell you, you know, everyone says, well, I grew up poor and I did this. I grew up poor. And when I was in college, I was living in a trailer for $90 a month. The trailer was bent in the middle. I had to have energy assistants come in and put windows on one side of the trailer just so the wind wouldn't run all the way through the trailer. The air conditioning ducts were rotted. I had a refrigerator with 2 blocks of commodity cheese in it. I've lived off food stamps. I've done the whole 9 yards. But right now I'm doing pretty well. And for whatever reason I am doing pretty well, I can assure you it's because white people, black people, Latinos and Asians and everyone and every flavor in between has along my life helped me out. So I'm not going to be one of these people to say, well, I did it, so you need to do it. I'm not worried about that. If you've got it, then don't worry about somebody else getting it. I think this country will be better if we all work together and fix the sins of our past. But let me tell you something. The past is right now. And the past is going to be tomorrow and the day after that. Quite honestly, we should have fixed it with 40 acres and a mule and that strip of land that General Sherman wanted to give all the freed slaves. But now, that tuition for fixing that problem has increased. But you know what? It's going to make us a better country. And those are my thoughts on it. So take this plan, rip it apart, but at least all I want to offer is, rather than say, yeah, I'm for reparations. No, I'm not for reparations. At least let's start putting pen to paper so that people know what they are either going to be for or against. Thanks a bunch. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, then I'm humbled that you would even want to listen. Thanks a bunch.